All right, welcome back. Ready for a bit more about 5G network security. Let me just start with denial of service, some concepts around how systems may be compromised or u- utilized via user equipment, access networks, and mobile operators' core networks, or even with various IP networks. Yeah, so coming over to user equipment, the wide adoption of open operating systems can be mobile phones and other devices, web consoles, etc. Will support, you can say, a large variety of connectivity options where we are here now, and that are is certainly also a target for cyber criminals. Apart from all existent SMS and MMS based denial of service attacks with over HTTP, maybe HTTPS also. Sophisticated attacks are weighted to originate from both mobile malware from websites, worms, trojans, etc. But that can also be via the core network. Mobile malware, which will be included in applications, may look like innocent software, typically games, utilities, which you can easily download and install. And they may try to reward you with a couple of dollars for paying attention to the apps or games. And future mobile botnets for 5G networks will be networks of compromised mobile devices under the control of malicious actors, commonly referred to as bot masters. So that can be a centralized or decentralized 5G mobile botnet uh, where the compromised mobile devices will be controlled by attacker through central, yeah, command and control servers. We'll see more about that in coming years with virtual servers as well. So over to the real deal, or these server-based things. We can just start with the explainer here. Botmaster will be the malicious actor that can access and manage the botnet remotely via a proxy server, and the botmaster will be responsible for choosing the mobile devices that will be compromised by malware and turned into bots. So, what we've learned is that any device can be located, and it may be for spy purposes that you see that it's a mobile phone or another just false name where they'll try to connect and utilize a bot master. But the purpose here is, of course, that it will exploit security vulnerabilities, typically operating systems and configurations of the chosen mobile devices compromise them. Both proxy servers, again, just as I mentioned, that means of mass communication um, that the bot mass will use to command and control the bots indirectly and probably directly, because servers are storing information and sending in and out information. Bots will be programmed and instructed by the bot master to perform a variety of malicious activities, such as distributed denial of service, attacks against network elements in the mobile network, mass distribution of spam, and the theft and further distribution of sensitive data, as well as installation of malware and other mobile devices. More or less, also what you see when your typically laptop, PC, computer receive a DDoS attack on your network card, or the infrastructure, or by messaging ports, or by other applications. So, two techniques that can be used by attackers to achieve UE location tracking in future 5G access networks are those for LTE networks described in reference, and they're based on the Cell Radio Network Temporary Identifier CRNTI and the packet sequence number. Um, And before explaining CRNTI, it's just so important that the terrestrial network, which I spoke about in the previous session, that most of that is uh, digged down um, in the ground and sufficiently protected um, within pipelined, wire uh, and layers, so that most of the physical infrastructure can be safely protected, so that you don't have black screens and computer networks without internet, mobile networks without mobile data or Wi-Fi. It is very, very dangerous when if you have hundreds of thousands and probably millions of user down. So security measures, as I was telling you about this RNTI provides a unique and temporary user equipment identification, not SSID, but user equipment ID at the cell level. And it's designed to by the net provide an RRC control signal when a user equipment is associated with the cell. And user equipment tracking is based on packet sequence numbers. And it contains information about when it's supposed to receive data and stop receiving data, and to read signals. And an attacker can track the user equipment based on their continuous packet sequence number of packet streams. So to address UE tracking based on sequence numbers, the authors in reference propose that the sequence numbers over the radio should be discontinuous in handover processes and possibly also in the state transitions between idle and active modes. Exactly that. Um, that protocols and gates and ports can be closed in idle and less active modes. False buffer status reports. Well, in current LTE networks, an attacker can exploit the buffer status report, which are used as an input information for packet scheduling. Can also be load balancing and admission control to achieve malicious intents. And yeah, attackers can send false buffer status reports on behalf of legitimate user equipment by following their behavior and on the narrow bands, causing serving issues. And message insertion attack is another type of attack for LTE networks. In LTE networks, the user equipment is allowed to stay in active mode but turn off its radio transceiver to save power consumption. An attacker can also inject control protocol data units or PDUs into the system during the DRX period to achieve DOS attack against the new arriving user equipment. So once again, quite technical abbreviations and terms for you, but the last thing I would like to mention here is something about those yeah, ENBs, just using the abbreviations here. Text and radio resources and management, user data and identity privacy, text and mobile operators core network, protocol attacks on HE and B, access control list, close subscriber group. The success of obtaining a copy of the credentials of the targeted depends on the implementation, and consequently, the credentials should be stored in a protected domain. All right. And physical attacks, still, as we know, eavesdropping on communication and identity fraud are two possible security issues that end users have to address. Also, DOS attacks against the network operators are possible. Mitigation approaches to secure the booting process by using cryptographic means such as trusted platform module. Very relevant in today's world, where we have a new trend where millions, in fact, hundreds of millions, have been fraudulently blackmailed, or not even blackmailed, but pressed out from at least two or three uh, Norwegian companies in between 2020 and 21 or 19. Yeah. So that's more or less what they do. They can eavesdrop on network data, eavesdropping of emails, um, intranet portals, etc., and distributed denial of attacks targeting the mobile operator's core network. Signaling amplification is an attack which could be performed by a botnet of multiple infected mobile devices within the same cell in order to deplete the network resources. And the HSS is an essential node of the evolved packet core, since it comprises a master database for a given user in its and it contains the subscription related information to support the network entities handling calls sessions. And why is that important? Well, because of its functional role in user authentication and access authorization. DDoS attacks also targeting external entities over a mobile operator's core network and compromised network. Yeah, I think also something on self-organizing networks, which is an algorithm for automatic interference and load balancing control are essential, but need to operate much faster in terms of network sensing, network health checking, algorithm processing, and network adjustment than in 4G due to the higher expectations of quality of experience in 5G. Algorithms are quite important when it comes to encrypting and decrypting for security syntaxes. I would like to say more about how networks would work in a RAN, radio access network, but for now, I think we have um, conveyed a lot of information. And if you have any comments, any questions, please let us know below. Um, and we'll try to come back to you. So, if you're interested in more information, please connect us. And many thanks again for being with us today. Have a very good week ahead.